Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. As you can see in the picture today, let's start the story of What If Issei Was Depressed Part 2. Chapter 4. Fire begets fire. Those are a lot of boxes. Strangely enough, those were the first thoughts that ran through Issei's thoughts when he went home today. Even stranger, Riaz and Asia were standing at the entrance of his home, seemingly waiting for him. But you, Asia, what are these boxes here for? Say, carry these boxes to your room right now. Riaz said those confusing words to Say, who could only manage in the face. PF such an assault. Carry these what? Why? Whose are these anyway? These are Asia's belongings. Starting today, she'll be staying with you. Truly, his life really was more lively now. So that's the situation. Otu-sama, Aku-sama. Would you please allow Asia-sen to stay here? What is this and I'm like development? But you said those words so casually, almost like it was already a sure thing. Issei's parent looked over at their son with calculating eyes. Why does it feel like they don't trust me at all? Issei got that kind of feeling from the stare he was receiving. Finally, his dad decided to speak. Asia-san, are you sure that you want to stay here? After all, our son here is the embodiment of sexual desires. You couldn't trust him to not do anything. It's unfortunate, but it may be better for you to stay in another house. After all, if something happens to you, we would feel guilty. Boy, you are aware that I'm here, right? And do you really think that I can hold myself back on such a sweet and innocent girl? It's sad that you didn't even bother to deny the embodiment of sexual desire thing. Shut up, drag. Back on topic, Issei's mother was nodding her head, agreeing to the fact that Issei was untrustworthy. They don't even trust in their own son. Granted, they have a point, but still. Riaz, not to be deterred by something as simple as refusal, continued on. Then how about if Asia becomes your daughter? The Hyoudou family, in a rare show of unity, voiced out their thoughts simultaneously. The patriarch, Aikido, was the first to speak up. What are you talking about? Well, Otu-sama, Asia has faith in his Say. So do I. He may be a bit of a pervert, but he is very dependable when you need him to be. Yes. Issei-san was the first one to help me when I came to this town. He even helps me out in class. So I want to stay with Issei-san. Issei blushed at their words. Issei did? Are you sure that was him? Thank you for those kind words, O parents of mine, Issei thought. Still, they seemed happy at the praises aimed at their son, so it was all right. How about this? Asia will stay here to train to become a bride. Bride not only Aikido and Aiko, but Issei as well were shocked at those words when Asia was just putting on a confused kind of face. Issei bride. Oh, Akusama, are you hearing what I'm hearing? We may be able to have grandchildren. I was so sure that Issei was going to die alone. He did. Me too. I always thought that Issei would never get someone because he's Issei. He's become a shame in society, a useless person. To think that there was a girl alive that would willingly be with Issei. He did think it. You really did think that I was going to die alone. Irika grabs Asia's hands in his own, tears running down his cheeks. Asia-san, he may be a useless pervert, but please, can I leave him to you? Boy. I'm right here, you know. Asia smiled, shaking her head. You're wrong, Oto-sama. Issei isn't useless. He is a very nice, very wonderful person. Issei's father turned towards the one who instigated all of this. Ria-san? We will look, no, please let us take care of Asia-san. We will gladly take her into our home. What's with the tears? Seeing that both parents were crying. Then thank you, Asu-sama, Akasama, I will leave Asia in your care. Asia, make sure to get along with Issei's parents, okay? Why, yes, but are you sure it's okay? I don't want to cause trouble for anyone. Weren't you the one who said I want to stay at Issei-san's house when I asked you where you wanted to stay? Well, yes, but of course, it's fine, Asia-san. Please stay here as long as you like. You might even be here for good after all. Then I understand. I'll be in your care from now on, Issei-san. Issei-sen's Oto-sama. Issei-sen's Akasama. The decision to let Asia stay in his house was decided by that short conversation. Issei almost didn't hear the short sigh of Rias. Right, Issei was pretty sure that things were going to get even more hectic than it already was. Hey Drake, where did I get this from? Issei said, looking critically at the item in his hand. He was holding a shini, a bamboo practice sword with a tiger-striped design, but it was also much more than that. For one thing, blades don't radiate rampant bloodlust the way this one did. I believe that you got that from the tiger yokai back in Kyoto. Yeah. I need to keep this in a safer place. He delicately placed the militia sword in a case made of special wood, specifically designed to suppress and hide magical items from the outside world. After Asia moved in the house, Issei decided to keep the trophies he had acquired through the years to keep Asia from discovering them and hurting herself. What about this one? That's runting, isn't it? You got that back in England. Now that I think about it, why the hell would I get a sword anyway? It's not like I know how to use any of them. Issei frowned, swinging around the weapon that was used against Grendel's mother. He shrugged, putting it in its own case. After a few hours of cleaning up the basement, during which he found a variety of items such as the Shroud of Turin, Crinwinin, a copy of Aegis, Turfing, a cornucopia, and even a golden apple from the Garden of Hesperides. However, when he came across one particular relic, he froze. Hesitantly, he picked it up and held it in his hands. It was a barbed, blood-red spear, almost as long as Issei himself, with a razor-sharp tip and vine-like runes running down its length. But even with its simple looks, it was unmistakable. This was a weapon meant to kill, meant to be wielded in the battlefield, used to spill the blood of enemies and to carve out their hearts. A cursed weapon, and one that Issei knew better than anyone else alive. Partner, is that Baybold? He breathed out. The cursed spear of the Irish hero, Coachellin. It was made from the bones of the sea monster Quenchin, which died fighting its brother the Kurd. The wounds made by its point never fully heals, and once activated, it reversed the law of causality, making it so that the lance was thrust so the heart was pierced became the heart was pierced so the lance must have been thrust. Quite simply, it guaranteed the opponent's fate when it was called a fatal move that pierces the heart with one thrust. It was given to him by the Chaos Brigade because he was their most effective killer, but it shouldn't be here because he threw it away the day he found out about the truth of the Chaos Brigade, about their betrayal to office. So why is it here? How? It should be in another dimension right now. Hardner, calm down. Breathe in and out, in and out. That's it. Issei inhaled deeply, making an effort to stop his panicked breathing. It was harder than he thought. Standing up, he placed the spear inside another case he had lying around. He resolved to think about the mystery in another time. Hey kid, what ya doing here all alone? Don't you know that being out here at night is dangerous? The man leered at him. Behind him, his friends were snickering at the kid's predicament. The child simply stared up at them, clutching the spear in his much too small hand. That's a nice little toy you got there. Mind if I borrow it for a while? His voice was soft. You can have it. Quick as a viper, the spear leaped to strike at the throat of the man who was much too slow and much too drunk to be able to do anything. His companions all shouted in surprise and anger, pulling out the swords at their waists to attack the killer. Too slow. In a minute, 2 of their numbers were already dead, their chests now having gaping holes on them where their hearts used to be. By now, they managed to get some semblance of order as they surrounded him. Too easy. Much too easy. He summoned his gauntlet, which covered his left arm. Guides him, the terrified voice of the soldier said. He dropped his sword and ran away screaming. The demon child. He was the first one to scatter from the ring surrounding the boy. He was also the first to die. In a flash of red, the boy was suddenly in front of him, the crimson spear entering his mouth and out the back of his head. With a contemptuous gesture, he flicked the body of his spear. Setting his sights on the terrified crowd in front of him, he charged forward, his face set in a calm, eerie blankness. Never. I will never accept this. Asia-san, why are you with Hyoudou? Not just Rias on the Sama, but even Asia-san as well. What's going on? Yeah, in hindsight, Issei really should have known that this was going to happen. Him, one of the 3 greatest perverts in school, walking with Asia Argento, the sweet and naive transfer student, walking together was bound to cause some rumors or a riot. Either way, because of his being with Asia, some other boys must have thought, since Issei Hyoudou could do it, then I can't too. And confessed to Asia when they were walking to school. She politely turned all of them down. So a lot of people were glaring at him, as evidenced by the white-hot glares sent at his back. Ah, the sweet taste of victory. Issei basked at the anger of the boys. Get jealous of me, boys. Issei-san, is there something wrong about me? Asia fidgeted at his stare. Sorry, Asia, I was just thinking of something. How is school, by the way? Are you having any problems? Issei truly was concerned. Asia was a nun until recently, so Issei was worried that she might have trouble adjusting to a completely different lifestyle so quickly. Issei would gladly help her in any problem she might have, but he wanted Asia to have friends too. No, everyone in school is so kind to me. They tell me a lot of things about Japan so I can get more familiar with it. I was also invited to go to a mall to shop with them. The two of them finally arrived at their classroom, and sitting in the middle of it was the biggest cause of concern for Issei. Asia-chan, good morning. Asia-san, your blonde hair is as shiny as ever. The other perverts in this school, Mitsuda and Motohama. Good morning, Mitsuda-san, Motohama-san. The two idiots began to wiggle in joy after being greeted by Asia. This is it, isn't Motohama? Yes, it is. Having a blonde beauty say good morning to us unpopular guys sure is enlightening. Issei shook his head with a small arrogant smile on his face. You guys are sad, getting happy over such a small thing. It really is nice too. Issei suddenly stopped his train of thought because Motohama suddenly punched him in the stomach. Who? What the hell was that for? The glasses-wearing pervert sneered and said, I've been hearing rumors about you. What? At this point, Matsuda joined the conversation with his own opinion. The rumors that you were walking with Asia this morning. What's up with that? Issei felt that the whole classroom and some students outside were now listening in intently. What about it? It's nothing special. Nothing special, he says. Bullshit. Do you know how long I've wanted to walk to school with a beauty next to me? So answer me, why were you with Asia? Asia answered with a soft smile, because I'm currently staying at Issei-sen's house. His parents were kind enough to take me in. You could have heard a pin drop in the silence that declaration caused. It did it? That's a lie. Mitsuda was now crying, desperately trying to deny that fact. That's right, cry. Be jealous of me. I say, living with a blonde beauty, that's impossible. Motohama joined in the depression. I say, you're getting along with a lot of women recently, right? Matsuda suddenly stood up, looking deadly serious. Confused, Issei nodded. So that means you can introduce us to women, right? Please let us meet anyone. I ask this of you, please. Like hell I'm letting you meet any of them, Issei thought, but outwardly, he only nodded. Sure, then I'll try and hook you up with one of them. Taking out his phone, Issei called the one person. He was okay being with the two of them. After talking for a few moments, they came up with a compromise. Well, that person said it's okay. That person even plans on bringing some friends as well. Here's the number. They said that they'll be free on Friday. Thank you. But the flash, the two of them grabbed Issei's phone from his hands and copied the contact information into their own. Issei, you be ready, at this rate we'll have girlfriends before you. So what kind of person is she? What kind of person is she? Issei answered slowly, thinking of a way to describe her. She likes to cosplay. Perfect. Thank you. We thank you from the bottom of our hearts. At those heartfelt words, Issei felt a tiny bit guilty. So why is she called Milton? Oh, could she be one of those goth lolas? I can't wait. Issei shook his head. Let them live in their delusion while they can. Issei immediately slumped on his bed the moment he and Asia got home. It was exhausting to be with Asia the whole day. He was worried about her first day as a devil. After all, she was too kind to reject any kind of requests that she was asked. Delusion start. Delusion no. 1. Devil-chan, please let me see your panties. After that, please show me your breasts. Delusion no. 2. Devil-san, please let me touch your breasts. Delusion no. 3. Asia-chan, please have sex with me. I'll give you my life if you let me do it to you. Delusion and, yeah. Like hell, he let her do those stuff. In the end, after much crying and begging on Issei's part, Riaz let him go with Asia on her summons. It was actually a pretty easy request, unlike the weirdos he had. The memory of Mil-Tan in those particular clothes made Issei want to cry. Issei-san? I'm going to cook dinner now. Ah, Asia-chan is such a good girl, she'll even cook for that worthless son of ours. I know, Akasama. We're very lucky to have a girl like Asia in our house. Issei sighed and moved to get up, but before he could leave the bed, a magic circle glowed on the floor. What? The figure appeared from it. With her distinctive red hair, Ria stepped forward, the magic circle behind her fading. She opens her mouth. Make love to me. Those words were the dream of every pervert in the world. Issei, never one to miss an opportunity given in a silver platter, said, Please, take my virginity. I need you to do it right now. Eloquent little Casanova, isn't he? Please lay down. I'll prepare myself. Saying that, she began to take off her skirt. Wait, please, at least try and X the white. Her panties are white, and her legs are, so stop it. Essie, try to find what caused this. I'm pretty sure that this isn't caused by anything I did. But you, what's going on? She takes off her shirt. Riaz, who was now only in her underwear, said, Issei, am I not good enough? But she what? This is the only option I have. Option? What are you talking about? I would really appreciate an explanation. The only person who can do it is you. I highly doubt that's true, or I fear for the future of Japan. Issei was now reduced to talking to himself to cope with one of the most unexpected things he has ever encountered. Finally, he found his tongue. What about Kiba? I'm sure he's a better choice. You do know him longer than me. Even as he said it, Issei was asking himself, why the hell am I refusing an offer from Bachu? That's because he's too much of a gentleman to accept my offer, and you're the only one I know who can do it. Hurry, they might find out about us. They? Who's they? He didn't even realize that he was on his back, Riaz on top of him. This is your first time, right, Issei? Yes. Okay then, it's easy, you just did inside here. Those words finally snapped Issei's wavering willpower. He reached up and pushed Riaz down on the bed, reversing their previous positions. Issei leaned down, his lips closed to flash. The appearance of a magical circle interrupted Issei from going on. Duledo, are you kidding me? Even the Chaos Brigade was less confusing than this. Ojusama, do you think that by doing this, you will break the agreement? The interloper was a beautiful silver-haired maid. Yes, I do. If you do this, then the masters will be disappointed if you give your chastity to someone as like this. What's with that tone of voice? It's like you're speaking about a cockroach. Who I give my chastity to is my concern and mine only. It doesn't have anything to do with any of you. And don't talk about him like that, Grafia. Issei is someone who is worthy of respect. The maid, who was apparently named Grafia, picked up Ria's clothes. Please cover yourself. As the heiress of the Gremory clan, you shouldn't let a man see yourself like this, especially with your situation. She then turned to me and bowed. Hello, I am the maid of the house, Gremory, Grafia. Pleased to meet you. Me too, I guess. Anyway, Oju-sama, please come with me. You have been called by your family. I see. Issei, would you please forget about this? I'm sorry for causing you trouble. It's okay. Well then, Grafia, let's go. Ria, as it seemed, was finally finished dressing. Yes. Before going, she turned towards Issei with a critical eye, observing him, measuring him. Being underneath that calculating gaze, Issei began to unconsciously tense himself, readying himself for a conflict. He prepared to summon his gauntlet within a moment's notice. The air between the two of them began to rapidly become suffocating. He saw the maid's minute twitches, preparation for combat, Issei thought, filing it away in his mind in case he ever got into a situation where it might prove helpful. Just as the tension was at its peak, may I bring Akino too? Ria's boy stopped them, oblivious to the fight that nearly occurred just a few feet away from her. Grafia looked away. Dear Queen. I don't mind. It's a status symbol for one's queen to always be by their side. Riaz suddenly turned toward Issei and kissed him on the cheek. Let's meet tomorrow, okay? The two of them disappeared in the signature flash of the summoning circle. Okay, what in fuck's name just happened? I don't really know. Issei-san? The food's getting cold. Issei shook his head, weirded out and confused by what just happened before going down to get dinner. Oh, looks like Asia made miso soup tonight. After school, Issei and Asia walked together to the Occult Research Club room. On the way there, they met up with Kiba. But whose problem? Maybe it has something to do with the house Gremory. She is the heiress after all. They walked through the door, and the sight of Ria's peerage greeted them along with Grafia. The atmosphere was tense, and Issei felt distinctly uncomfortable, aware of the fact that he didn't belong here, that he wasn't one of them. Grafia was the one who broke the silence. Ojusama, would you like me to explain? No, it's fine. Ria took a deep breath. Everyone, the truth is, without warning, the magic suddenly picked up, a summoning circle appearing on the floor. From it, fire suddenly flared up, flames licking the ceiling of the room. In the middle of it, a silhouette could be seen. It swung his arms and the fire died down and could finally be seen clearly. He was a tall, handsome man that looked like he was in his 20s. He was wearing a burgundy blazer over a white dress shirt, which opened up to show his chest. Completing the ensemble were matching pants and black dress shoes. Hello, Riaz. I've personally come here to the human world just to see you. Ria's glare could have melted steel, but the man didn't seem to care and approached her. Oh, don't be like that. We still need to look for the ceremony halls, not to mention where we have the reception. The date is already set, so we need to check it out before the deadline. Issei has never seen Riaz look as pissed as she did right now. Grafia interjected before things could get bloody, explaining for the benefit of the ignorant in the room. This is Riser Phoenix Sama, a pure-blooded, high-class devil, the third son of the House Phoenix. He is also Ojusama's fiancé. The Sei twitched, his fingers reaching for a weapon that wasn't there. He saw the maid take note of his movement from the corner of his eye. Like he suspected, she really was a dangerous individual. This tea is delicious, as expected from Ria's queen. Thank you? Even though Aikano was smiling, it doesn't quite reach her eyes, which were frigid enough that Issei actually felt the change in temperature. Scary. Riaz was sitting on the couch with Riser at her side, hands on her shoulders, playing with her hair. Issei was staring at the object of interest, Riser Phoenix, his eyes taking on an orange hue. After a few more minutes, Riaz finally snapped. Stop that. I already told you, I am not marrying you. Arius, can you really afford to think like that? What about your family? That doesn't concern your Riser. I am the heir of the Gremory clan, not you, not anyone but me. I will choose my husband as is my right. My brother, my father and my mother may force me, but I do not have an obligation to accept it. But your brother and father are getting worried, you know. They fear that your household will disappear, will become extinct. Pure-blooded devils are rare these days, you know. There are still enemies out there, and you said it yourself, you're the heir of the Gremory house, you need to think about what's best for your clan, regardless of your personal feelings. That's the duty of a clan head, is it not? Riaz gritted her teeth. I am willing to do the duties expected of me, and I am willing to take a husband. Riser's eyes widened in surprise. Really? Splendid. Then I'll tell. Riaz cut him off. I said that I am willing to take a husband, but that man will not be you. I will marry the one who I chose, not the one chosen for me. Riser glares at her, the temperature rising bit by bit as she said her piece. Boosh. The pillar of fire suddenly engulfs him. He was angry. I will take you as my wife, even if I have to burn each of your servants. Issei felt Asia clutch at his arm, trembling in fear at the killing intent filling the room. Beside him, Kaneko and Kiba were preparing for battle, while Yukino, despite appearing amicable enough, was also radiating killing intent. Enough. That one word was enough to stop all movement in the room. If both of you go any further, then I won't hold back. Riser's flame died down. To be told that by the strongest queen herself. Well, it looks like I have to step down for now. The masters knew it would end like this, So in their last meeting, they set up a last resort, and that is an unofficial rating game against each other. You could actually feel the surprise in the room. Ria spoke up. So even if I refused, I would have still had to fight in a rating game? How far are they willing to meddle with my life? She was bitter at having her choice taken away from her. Then would I take that as a declination? No, I will fight. I will fight against Riser Phoenix for my own freedom. So you accept with this peerage? Then I'll win quite easily then, and after that you will have no choice but to marry me. So you accept these terms? Yes. Yes. I see. Then I, Graphia Lucifuge, will be in charge of your game. Is that understood? Yes. Yes. Then I will inform your respective household of your decision. Rias, are you sure you can fight with these people? These servants of yours? Only your queen can match up to my own peerage. So saying, he snapped his fingers. Immediately, an identical crest appeared behind him and 15 people emerged from it. Breezer-sama, are these the people we have to beat up? Rias, be ready. Once you are my bride, this is what I will do to you. Breezer grabbed a girl and kissed her. The moans and sounds they were making was enough to make Asia's face burn like a tomato. This is what you will look forward to when you... Everyone, even Graphia, who was stoically staring at the air, was startled by the unexpected outburst. They looked at the source and saw a young-looking girl with long blonde hair styled into twin ponytails designed like drill-like curls. She was wearing a light purple dress with a blue bow on the front. Her fingers, however, were pointed straight into the only non-devil in the room. Me? Issei asked. Yes, you? I know you. You were the one from 2 years ago. I'm sorry, you must have mistaken me for someone else. What? But you're Haruka-1, right? My name's Issei. I don't know any Haruka. I see. Riser put the conversation back on topic. Then how about this? I'll give your peerage 2 weeks to prepare for our battle. If I fought you like you are right now, then it won't be entertaining at all. The next time we meet, it will be at the rating game. Pick out your wedding dress, Rias. They dissipated in a column of fire, leaving Rias alone with her peerage and Graphia. Issei reached forward to get a cup of tea. After Riser left, the club room was in a rather grim mood. Issei looked up at the silver-haired maid in front of him. The club members all looked to them, glad for the distraction from their somber thoughts. Yes. Ojusama seems to hold you in high regards even though you are not even a devil. Why did you not make any defense toward her? Graphia Rias asked, but Graphia spoke over her. Well, tell me, what are your thoughts on this matter at hand? She should have accepted the wedding. What? The whole room was surprised. Rias, in particular, looked at Issei with a betrayed expression on her face. Issei ignored her and stared at Graphia. In a political standpoint, Riser was correct. She is a future clan head and, as such, must put the matters of her clan over her own personal feelings. He stared down at the tea in his hand. Everyone glared at his say, except for Graphia, who had a near imperceptible smile on her face. And what are your feelings on this? The cup shattered in his hand, startling them. When he looked up, the fire in his eyes was frankly both frightening and awe-inspiring. Everyone deserves a chance, an opportunity to fight for themselves. No one has the right to take away the free will of a person. No one has the right to decide anything for another. One person and one person alone will decide their fate. Themselves. It's disgusting for one's freedom to be suppressed, for one's free will to be shattered, put in chains, doing what others demand, nothing but a puppet, smiling and acting for the purpose of others. We have the right to choose what we want and to reject what we don't. At some point in his tirade, he stood up, his gaze landing on all of them. He turned towards Rias, whose eyes were welling with unshed tears. That is why, if you will have me, I will fight for you. I will be your pawn. If you will let me, then I will be the one who will set you free. Rias, not trusting her voice, nodded. She whispered, then if you will have me, I will be your master. Graphia smiled. After that commotion back in the club room, Issei was glad to be back in the peace and quiet of his home, alone with his thoughts. So, partner, care to tell me why you decided to be a devil? And Greg, I don't know, really. It was just a spur of the moment thing, I guess. Really? 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 She just reminded me a little of myself, that's all. Greg snorted at that. Yeah, right. As if someone like her would be remotely like you is laughable. Don't be like that, we all have our problems, don't we? Some are just worse than others. What part about her reminded you of your situation anyway? Issei gave a thoughtful at that question. She was forced into a situation she never asked for, robbed of her own choices. She did all she could and didn't even succeed. She has someone that can help her escape that future and refused to do anything about it. She's alone, surrounded by people who don't believe in her, who won't let her take her own fate in her own hands. So? She did nothing that left you in her debt. You have no obligation whatsoever to fight for her. Even if she does remind you of yourself, you have no need to even care for her situation, much less do something about it. In fact, it's probably expected of you to not care, to turn away from her the moment you found out about her situation. Issei absently scratched at his chest. I know. I understand all of that, but it's just he shrugged helplessly. I felt like it was the right thing to do, you know? I just wanted to make sure that no one will never experience what I lived through. Partner, rest assured, no one will experience what you went through. Drake's voice gained a hint of sardonic amusement in them. I know, but what can I do? It's the only thing I'm good for. That way of thinking is going to get you killed, you know, especially in a world like this. Drake finally gave up on subtly trying to get him off this deal. Don't worry, I don't plan on dying anytime soon. If I did, then I wouldn't be talking to you about this, right? Issei's eyes gained an inexplicable orange hue, his voice gaining a small edge to it. But Drake was not one to be deterred. So you're okay with it being in the mercy of another being? Literally being another one's pawn? That's fucked up. You're a hypocrite. You don't want anyone to be under the orders of another, yet you're willing to go through it. To be another slave? Yes. Why? Issei smiled. Because I want to help people. I want to make a difference in someone's life. I want them to remember me as someone to look up to. Even if I know that I don't deserve it, but I want to make my mark on this world. I want others to know that I lived as a person to be remembered by those who know me. And if being a pawn will help me do that, then I will do so. Of course, Issei would something as cheesy and cliché as that. After all, who would appreciate life better than one who has dealt death more than any other human in the world? One who tore away father from their family, taken away mothers from their children? One who killed because he was ordered to, because he never knew any better. Who would appreciate life better than one who has just gained it, lived it, and would lose it again in a matter of years? Briggs suddenly felt a wave of pity for his current wielder. He doesn't deserve this. Someone like Issei, he never deserved the life he got. He, more than any other person in the world, should be allowed to find happiness. Chapter 5. Obligatory training montage. Issei felt better than he had in a long time. The pain that was his constant companion since he left Chaos Brigade in that disaster of a fight was now lessened. It was still there, but compared to a few weeks ago, it was now a lot more tolerable. It's because you're a devil now, partner. Their bodies are inherently stronger than humans, not to mention they have longer lives, so your life force is now far from the danger levels. It's still a great deal smaller than most devils, still it means that you'll live for at least a couple 100 years. It looks like I may have to thank the devil girl. She did do something to benefit you. It seemed that Drag was listening to his thoughts. Really? Then that's good. He was laying down, alone in the rooftop of the school, deciding to cut classes after being reborn as a devil. He used the time to observe the changes the ritual left him. It seems that not only did it strengthen his body, it also affected his life force as well. The life force was an anchor which enabled the soul to stay inside the body. Every living being had it, but only a percentage of humans has it usable enough to be able to properly interact with the supernatural, and even fewer of those humans were able to develop powers of their own. Those people, the gifted, were what humans called uspers. It was because the life force wasn't just a force that tied down the soul, it also enabled people to be able to interact with natural energy. Natural energy, when used and applied correctly, left the body some amazing effects. That's why some people are able to see things before they happen, or why they can heal inexplicably from wounds that would be otherwise lethal. Because senjutsu enhances one's sense to the point that it can reach precognition and turns the body into a state of peak condition, strengthening even the blood cells in the body, making the person immune to disease and improves the healing process. Of course, that's disregarding the fact that it also takes the malice in the air, so when used often enough, it makes the user insane. That's why most people would rather stick with the more dependable aspects of the supernatural. What do you think you're doing? Issei looked up and saw a glasses-wearing teenager with violet eyes and black hair styled in a bob cut. Issei closed his eyes after taking in her figure. I was resting here. That does not excuse you cutting classes. Come on, I'm a newly revived devil. Cut me some slack, would you? No. It's my responsibility as the student council president to make sure that every student does their obligations, and that includes going to classes, newly revived devil or not. I didn't vote for you? What? What? You don't vote for the student council president. The school chooses it depending on the ability and capability of the person. Supreme executive power comes from a mandate of the masses, not handed to you by the higher-ups. Issei was amused by this unexpected interaction, finally able to reference those movies that he loved to watch. Please be quiet and come with me. You can't expect any student to just up and go because you ordered him to. A young man with short blonde hair and gray eyes, who was silent until now, snapped, "Shut up and go to your class. That's an order from the student council president." He stepped forward and moved to Hyoudou Issei to his feet. Now we see the violence inherent in the system. Come and see the violence inherent in the system. Help, I'm being repressed. In the background of the two idiots arguing, Sona sighed, feeling a headache forming. Issei walked into the clubroom after classes ended. He didn't really know why he waited until classes ended to go here. He saw that the whole club was already there, apparently waiting for him. Hello, everyone, Issei said with a smile, obviously at ease with all of them. But you, it seems that Issei-kun has already adjusted to being a devil. Ria smiled at the latest addition to her peerage. Okay. Since everyone is here, I'll explain what we're going to do. We're going for a training trip in Gremry territory. Don't worry, I got permission from the school, so it should be okay. Speaking of which, she turned to Issei. What's this I hear about you and the student council? Issei shrugged ruefully. I was quoting Monty Python, Issei said with an embarrassed smile. Ria's blinked. Tell us all about it on the way there. She walked out, her peerage following behind her. They arrived at a mountainside villa, which was apparently owned by the Gremry clan. Not the villa, but the whole freaking mountain. The sea had only one problem. What the hell do I do? Okay. Put all your things in the living room, then go and find your bedrooms. Issei, who was carrying the majority of their baggage, gladly set down the ridiculously large pack he was carrying. After doing all their responsibilities, which was cleaning the house, letting the dust out among other things, they were gathered in the kitchen. Okay, Issei Asia, to be able to properly formulate a plan, I need both of you to show me what you can do. An expectant silence formed. All the devils focused on the two newest recruits. Well, Asia spoke up. Well, but I'm sorry, but I don't really know a lot about fighting. I just used my sacred gear, that's all. Don't worry, Asia, I kind of expected that, to be honest. Issei, what about you? What do you want to see? Well, for starters, what about that magic you used back there in the church? I want to see it up close, if possible. Issei nodded, holding out his hands in front of him. In his mind, he chanted his aria that pushed back any negative side effects there may be lingering from the curse. Of tainted hands he cleanses, with broken steel he saves. Such is the life of a warrior, and so he sings the song of ice and fire. A burst of flame suddenly appeared, breathing Issei an orange fire, and as quickly as it appeared, it seemed to vanish, forming into the gloves that he was now wearing. It was a deep crimson with the bottom part having a flame-like design, rising to meet in an X formation at the base of the gloves. Its back part had a green jewel embedded in it, the Roman numeral 3, placed right in the middle of it. The index finger of his right hand also seemed to have a silver ring on it, designed much in the same way as the gloves. However, they weren't staring at the gloves, impressive as they were. What truly captivated them were his eyes. His eyes were now glowing a soft orange, practically radiating power. When he turned his gaze towards each of them, they instinctively shivered in anticipation or dread, they didn't know. Is this okay? Issei's voice, steady with an undertone of power, snapped them out of their daze. Still, it took a while for Riaz to find her voice. Why, yeah. That's amazing. What is that? Issei let his flames fade, his eyes returning to its usual brown. All of them felt both disappointed and relieved that it was back to normal. Why? They didn't know. That was a branch of Senjutsu. Kaneko's eyes instantly snapped to Issei. Akino was intrigued by his display. Or how does Senjutsu do something like that? Issei thought about his training on that particular field. Not good memories, considering that most of those lessons nearly drove him into madness. It uses the natural energy in the air and absorbs it into my body, mixing it with my own life force. What does that do exactly? It makes me more aware of, well, everything, I guess. Since it's Senjutsu, it makes sensing things a lot easier. What about the negative effects? Doesn't using Senjutsu make you crazy? Kaneko spoke up, eyes staring straight into his. Not really. I mean, Drake regulates it inside me. I never really mastered it, just learned enough to be able to use it. Kaneko nodded slowly, still staring at him with narrowed eyes. Issei was currently with Akino, who was training both him and Asia in using their demonic energy. That's it, Asia-chan. You gather your energy by using the aura of your body. Then, once you have done that, concentrate it and feel it within you. Asia was talented in this sort of thing, green power coating her hands. It seemed that Asia had above-average magical energy for someone who was just recently turned. With a small gesture, the seed planted in a small pot in front of her quickly grew, like a video being fast-forwarded. In contrast, that's wrong, Issei-kun. You need to visualize it at the same time you make your demonic power flow into your hands. Issei was still that. Issei sighed. He really didn't have any talent for this. It was the second day of their training trip, and already he was having problems. Even as a child, when he was still training, he never really had any kind of aptitude for the mystical arts. Any and all efforts were thwarted by his small pool of magical energy. As a result, all of his exercises were focused on the more violent aspects of his occupation. Now that he thought about it, he didn't really have any useful magic to speak of. He only had 2 in his arsenal, and those shouldn't even be considered. His awakened mode couldn't be counted as magical because of the fact that it was focused more on utilizing the energy around and inside him, using Senjutsu with magic only for making sure that it went to the proper places. As for the other, well, best not talk about that one. That one earned him the ire of many a woman, and the praises and thanks of a lot of men. Really, Issei-kun, are you really trying? After that display yesterday, I had such high hopes for you too. That was true. His awakened mode seemed to stir the curiosity of the devils with him, asking Issei many questions about it. The strengths, weaknesses, effects, what it does and such other things. Because of that, it seemed that they put him on a higher pedestal than he deserved. Sorry, Akino-san, but I really have no talent for this sort of thing. The only magic I can really use is that form of mine, and I don't really use magic for anything else. As he sighed at the small note disappointment in Akino's voice. At times like this, he really wished that he had a normal childhood. Not like the one he had. It was a dark, dank place, containing only a window that barely let any light in and a small tattered blanket, and there, sitting in the middle of it all, sat a child. He was staring up at the only light source he had. Sometimes, when he was alone, he would wonder, what is out there? Will I ever see the world beyond this? The child was interrupted from his thoughts by a slam. He turned around and saw a figure cloaked in darkness. Come. He instantly obeyed, instincts hammered into him controlling his body. Without further prompting, he followed the masked man out of his room and into the courtyards, where a crowd of grown men numbering in the dozens were raucously gathered. All of them were armed with an assortment of different weapons, from clubs, to swords, to axes. All of them were weapons made to kill and maim. He turned to the man beside him, who wordlessly handed him a dagger. Because of his comically small body, it looked more like a short sword than a knife. You know what to do? He nodded, turning towards the crowd now charging at him, a calm expression on his face. With a small gesture, the boosted gear appeared in his arm. He didn't feel fear from facing those men. Of course he wouldn't, this is what he lived for after all. Issei walked to a clearing in the forest by the villa. He had asked Rias for a place where he could train alone. He needed a place where he wouldn't be disturbed. He sat down in front of a tree, leaning into it. He closed his eyes and breathed in deeply. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Slowly, nature energy began to trickle into him, reaching his core, his life force. Once that was done, he extended his senses, letting it touch the signs of life around him. He felt the trees, the insects, and even the leaves in the clearing. He let himself relax, hearing the song of the birds and the gentle drip of a small pond near the clearing. Then he felt something that was different, approaching where he currently was. He opened his eyes just as Kaneko stepped in the clearing. She froze when she saw that his gaze was on her. Issei smiled at her. Hello, Kaneko-chan, what are you doing here? It's not that I dislike your company, but shouldn't you be training with Bachu and the others now? That snapped her out of her daze. She hesitated before going on. Senpai, please teach me how to use nature energy. She bowed before him. Issei seemed a bit taken aback, though he should have expected it. He finally made the connection, that's why she was so curious about his awakened mode. Still, are you sure that you want me to be your teacher? I haven't really mastered the whole nature energy yet. She suddenly looked downcast. So you won't? Seeing that face, usually emotionless, become so sad made Issei regret his words. Still, he thought, that's just unfair. I didn't say that. It's just, well, Issei saw the now almost expected look on her face and immediately knew that he wouldn't be able to say no. Yes, I'll teach you. A small smile on her face made the deal so worth it. Issei stood in front of Kaneko, who was sitting cross-legged in the middle of the same clearing they were in just yesterday. It seemed that Kaneko took his words to heart and was holding him to his word. Kaneko-chan, before we begin, I'll ask you this. You're a Nikomata, aren't you? Kaneko nodded hesitantly. Issei moved on, oblivious to the conflict in his kohai. Okay. Well, that makes things easier. Since you're a yukai, it means that you're more in tune with nature than other beings. Have you ever had formal training in senjutsu before? She shook her head in response. Well, first things first. To use senjutsu, you need to be able to gather natural energy and properly mix it with your own life force. Can you do that? Enko nodded, closing her eyes. Issei felt the girl in front of him gather the required energy, slowly becoming one with nature. The quiet atmosphere only occasionally broken by the rustle of leaves as the wind passed by and the constant trickle of water flowing from the pond nearby. Finally, after a few minutes, he said, "Stop." Kaneko opened her eyes, looking at him quizzically. Senpai? That should be enough. He took out a mirror from his pocket and placed it in front of her. It seemed that in her concentration on her work, she didn't notice the change she underwent. While she still looked the same as ever, still wearing the Kwa Academy uniform, she underwent a small but noticeable change. She turned into her Yaokai form. With a pair of white cat ears, a pair of matching tails and eyes that were noticeably more feline, she was undoubtedly a Nikomata. She was also a Lowland's wet dream. Come here. Puzzled, she walked towards her now teacher. Aniko-chan, do you know how to use Taki? Issei asked. He knew the principles, of course. Use your life aura to surround your body, and it will increase your strength, speed, and defense. Simple enough, but he never had the aptitude needed to utilize it. That's why he made his awakened mode after all as a replacement for his inability to properly control his own life force, substituting it instead with natural energy. She shook her head. As expected, that particular branch of senjutsu was harder than most, as it was hard, very hard to teach to a student, as it was more of an instinctual skill. It was a good thing that she was an Enkamata, one of the few beings that was so intrinsically linked to nature that it was impossible for her not to learn this skill. So the only thing he needed to do was awaken that instinct. Kaneko-chan, I won't lie. This is going to be very difficult for you. Are you sure you want this? She nodded resolutely, determination in her eyes. The sage gently placed Kaneko on the bed in her room. It was an exhausting day for her. For someone to use Tuki, one must be able to interact with one's own life force through the use of energy manipulation. Not really an easy task. Still, she was willing to learn, and that was more than enough to learn. Coupled with the fact that she was a Yokai and an Enkamada at that, Issei didn't doubt that Kaneko would be able to utilize Tuki in combat by the time the raiding game came by. Issei turned to leave when his sleeve was grabbed by the girl in the bed. He looked at her and saw that she was curled up in the bed, much like a cat speaking in her dreams. Oniai-chan. Issei smoothly shook off her grip, still staring at the Nikomata. He fixed her position on the bed, placing her head on the pillows and tucking her in. He left the room, but not before uttering a soft good night as he did so. It was the 7th night of their trip. The days continued on, Issei practicing magic with Asia and Akino, in which he still failed. He was pretty sure that all efforts were doomed to fail. Sword fighting with K.I.B.A. He never really did get used to using any kind of swords. He preferred spears himself. And talking with Rias. Asia was improving by leaps and bounds, quickly being able to master the use of fire, water, and even lightning. Even Rias was impressed by her skill, calling her a natural. Dibba was slowly but surely developing his already prodigious talent in the way of the blade, becoming even faster than he was before the trip, courtesy of his training, which involved tying stones to his bare feet and running to improve both his speed and stamina. Even Rias and Akino were training themselves, regularly sparring, both physical and magical ones. They were finding more and more creative ways to utilize their specialties in the art, the power of destruction and lightning respectively. The last he saw, Rias was making it so that her magic could respond to her will, making it form all sorts of shapes that could be used in proper combat, and Akino was trying to imbue her physical strikes with magic such as ice and fire, and the two were even mixing some of their more favored elements. If they mastered it, it would be a sight worth to see. And finally, Kaneko, Issei's current student. She was an excellent learner, willing to do anything that Issei asked her to do. She did the exercises with a natural talent, and yet Issei could somewhat feel that she was still holding back. She was learning quickly, to be sure, but Issei felt that something was keeping her from reaching her true potential. Issei shook his head. Those were thoughts for the day, and for now he needed to rest for the next day. He got up from his bed in the room he shared with Kiba to go down in the kitchen to get a glass of water. Issei walked out the kitchen and was greeted with the sight of Rias in her nightgown. Issei, you're still awake? Rias was sitting on the windowsill of the living room, staring at him curiously. Hello, but you? She smiled at him. Hello? Would you please sit with me? I want to talk to you. Issei nodded, sitting on the chair in front of the table and turning to face her. It was then that he noticed something. But why are you wearing glasses? Don't devils have perfect eyesight? She reached up to touch the aforementioned eyepiece. This? Oh, this is nothing. It's just for looks, it just helps me think clearer, I suppose. She waved at the small stack of books beside her. What are those? Information. These are the compilation on all the things about the Phoenix clan. A long time ago, the mystical beast, Phoenix, was looked upon by humans as a bird that governs life. It was so looked upon that it left it legend in many countries in the human world, where it's told that the tears of the phoenix can heal any wounds, and the blood that flows within its body can give eternal youth to those that drink it. But there is another clan with the same name, the one humans called Phoenix, Issei muttered. The great Marquis of Hell, one who commanded a legion of 20 demons under his name. Rias looked surprised at his knowledge. Yes, how did you know that? Issei shrugged, an embarrassed grin on his face. I read the Ars Grotia a while ago. Well, you're correct. But the Phoenix family is more than just that, they also carried the power of the Phoenix inside them. They are the masters of fire, capable of burning anything. They say that to their flames is capable of destroying even the soul of a person, but that isn't the problem. The problem is the fact that they are immortal. Issei looked up, surprise evident in his features. Immortal? What does that mean? It means that they are invincible. They are capable of regenerating from any and all damage dealt to them. Issei thought back to all the beings he had fought over the years and came to a conclusion. No enemy is truly invincible. From humans to gods, every being has a weakness. It's all a matter of finding it and exploiting it. Riaz looked at him. Every time he spoke, it seemed that Issei found a way to amaze her. She really should have expected it by now. Well, be that as it may, it doesn't change the fact that his record in the rating games is 82. Even then, those 2 losses of his were lost on purpose as a gift to the households he's close to. I felt uneasy when I heard that I was to become his fiancée. In fact, I think that my parents chose him in case I ever challenged him to a rating game. Yes, I believe that they chose Riser so that I will be left with no choice other than to marry him. That was just cruel, giving her a chance that they knew she had no hope to claim. When the rating games were first introduced, the Phoenix clan began to climb the ranks quickly. Devils never really fought each other, so when they were exposed to the power of the Phoenix, their fellow devils finally began to realize just how their powers really are. Issei spoke up. But you, what is it? Why do you hate? No, why do you seem against the idea of marriage so much? Like he stated before, the arranged marriage was a politically sound plan. The 2 clans will become closer through the union of the 2, their power and position will be raised because of each other, and it will help keep the lineage of at least one of the 2 clans. It's because I'm a Gremry. Well, he didn't expect that answer. Seeing his confusion, Riaz decided to elaborate. I'm a Gremry, and what's more, I'm also the heir of my clan. Because of that, I will always carry that name wherever I go. Do you hate it, being a Gremry, I mean? Of course not, I'm proud to be a Gremry. It's just that most people look at me and see the Riaz of the Gremry clan. I don't want that. I want them to see me not as the heir of my clan, but me as Riaz. That's the main reason why I came to the human world in the first place. They don't see me as a devil, but as a person. I never felt like that in the underworld. That's why I don't want to marry Riser, because I'm sure that he won't let me go here. I want to be seen as my own person. Riaz drew her legs up to her chin, eyes distant. I want to be with someone that sees me as what I am, not because of my family, or fame or whatever. That's my greatest dream. But unfortunately, Riaz doesn't see me that way. He sees me as a Gremry. What he cares for is me. As Riaz of Gremry, I want to be with someone who would love me as my own person. Issei thought about what she just said. After a few moments, he said what he honestly thought. That's why I'm here, right? She looked at him in confusion. That's why I'm fighting for you. He explained. I saw you back in the club room. You looked so frustrated. That's why I'm here for you. I want to give you the chance to live, to be with whoever you want. I want you to be able to enjoy your life, to be able to smile, not having to worry about your future or whatever. I don't really know anything about the underworld or the hierarchy or all that. I just want to help you achieve your dreams. Issei forged on, oblivious to Riaz's wonder, staring. I like but you. I just want you to be you, I guess. Issei smiled, scratching the back of his head in embarrassment. He looked up and finally saw her flaming red cheeks. Wildly, he waved his arms around. Ah. Sorry about that, but you. I said something strange, didn't I? He blamed that one on his somewhat stunted social life, where he didn't get to interact with normal human beings. Riaz quickly shook her head, her hair bouncing around. Don't worry, but I'll do my best to make sure that you won't get married to a creep like him. I give you my word, Issei said, losing his awkwardness as his eyes glowed a faint of orange. Riaz got up from the windowsill to walk over to him. But you? Hug. Riaz hugged her pawn, happiness evident from her form. Thank you, Issei, thank you. It was the 10th day of their training trip, and Issei was alone in his room, staring at his gauntlet-clad hands, specifically, the green jewel embedded behind it and the Roman numeral 3 displayed in the middle of it. Greg, take the first seal off. Boost. As he watched, one of the initials disappeared, leaving only a 2. He inhaled deeply before gathering the necessary nature energy and entered his awakened mode. Instantly, a small spike of discomfort twinged in his chest, not really painful, but definitely noticeable. Beside and dismissed both forms. I don't think that would affect my performance that much, would it? No, it wouldn't, not that much anyway. Why did you unseal it anyway? Didn't you say that you weren't going to use the boosted gears ability again? That is why you had me make the seal. Drake reminded his wielder. I know, but our opponent is a phoenix after all, and even I could lose to an immortal. Prepared as always, aren't you? I wouldn't be alive if I wasn't. A knock interrupted them. Senpai, are you there? Ah, Kaneko-chan, I'm here. He hurried to open the door where Kaneko was waiting. Senpai, I did all the exercises. You did? That was quick. Issei was pretty sure that it would have taken her at least until the match to do it. Can you show me? The white-haired loli nodded, taking a stance. Gradually, the air around her began glow green. Her aura, Issei recognized. The aura of power focused into her body, covering all of her. Is this okay? She asked. It wasn't perfect, not even close, though why Issei didn't know. Maybe it was because of whatever it was that was holding her back. Still, it was a lot better than any of Issei's efforts. It was pretty good for a first try. Yeah, that's okay. Issei patted her on the head, Kaneko looking almost content as he did so. On 14th day, they were all at their respective homes. Rias had given them the final day off to make sure that they were all well rested, she had said, so on 10 o'clock at night, Issei laid down on his bed. The raiding game was set to start at exactly 12 a.m. Rias had asked her peerage to meet up at the club room at 11:30 p.m. She had also requested them to wear the Qua Academy uniform. When asked why, she said, "We are the members of the Occult Research Club after all." Knock knock. Issei turned to see Asia meekly open the door wearing the outfit that he first saw her in. She was wearing her nun outfit excluding her rosary and veil. Asia, that outfit? Ah, this? She gestured to herself. But you said to wear whatever makes me comfortable, and I immediately thought of this. Even though I'm a devil now, I still haven't forgotten my beliefs, she said. Well, that looks really good on you, so don't worry, Asia. She stepped forward and sat beside me on the bed. Issei-san, I'm scared. She leaned her head on his shoulder. In response, Issei hugged her to his side. Don't worry, Asia, I'll be there to protect you after all. Asia sighed in response, wiggling closer to him. Nah, Issei-san, can we stay like this until we leave? Seeing her expectant look, he smiled. Sure. The whole club was gathered at the old school building at nearly 10 minutes to midnight. Daiba was leaning against the wall, wearing gauntlets in his arms and shin guards to protect his legs, inspecting his swords. Inecho was sitting in the couch, reading a book. She was wearing fingerless gloves that martial artists used. Issei could sense that it also allowed for natural energy to be absorbed into them. Aikano and Rias were sitting cross-legged, calmly sipping the tea that the queen made. Basha was sitting in front of them, fidgeting slightly. Issei was staring at his hand, the two in the back of his gloves gleaming innocently in the light. The magic circle appeared and the maid, Graphia, walked through it. The match is about to begin. Are you ready? After receiving a round of affirmation from everyone in the room, she explained the detail of the raiding game. When the match begins, all of you will be transported using a magical circle into another dimension, specifically made for the use of raiding games. They made another dimension just for this purpose. How strong are devils anyway? Issei thought. The maid continued, the two households. The Gremry clan and the Phoenix clan will also be watching this match along with some of their close allies. Issei slightly tensed. He wasn't really used to fighting while someone is watching. And he knew beyond doubt that there would be observers in this fight. Mayu-sama will also be watching this. Please do not forget this. The Mayu. Mayu would be observing this fight. I see. So Ani-sama is watching, so the Mayu is Butch's brother. Well, that would be Asahi's train of thought continued on before what she said caught up to him. What? Oni-sama? Tiba answered him. Butch's brother is the Satan-sama. Please don't drop these kind of bombshells 5 freaking minutes before the start of one of our most important fights. Sergix Gremry, the Crimson Satan, was the strongest devil in his generation, so he was chosen to be one of the leaders in the underworld. Aquino helpfully supplied. It's time. Everyone, please gather in the circle. We will now transport you to the battlefield. They all nodded, following her instructions. Within moments, light covered them and they were all sent to the battlefield. Issei closed his eyes. Greg, ready? Ready as ever. Good. When he opened his eyes, they were now glowing with power. Okay, let's begin the game. Chapter 6: The Battle. Once the light died down, Issei saw the clue broom. Issei's mind tried to find the reason for that. Where in the clue broom? Issei looked at the window and saw the whole school, exactly like before, except for one difference. The sky was bright like daylight instead of the midnight it should be. No, it seems that the whole school is here too. So they send us to a dimension that's exactly like home. Why? Because he wanted to give us an advantage, or he is maidenwise of disgust. Issei turned towards her inquiringly. But this really is like him. He probably did something like this to show me that even with me having an advantage, he'll still win. I won't give him the satisfaction. I'll make sure that we win this game. The chorus of approval greeted her declaration. The voice of Graphia the maid sounded through the room. Hello, everyone. I am Graphia, a maid from the House of Gremory, and I will be the arbiter of the match between Rias Gremory and Riser Phoenix. In the name of my master, Surgic as Lucifer, I will observe this match. With Riser-sama and Rias-sama's opinion, we created this Battlefield Core Academy, the school which Rias-sama attends in the human world. I see. So it seems that we have the field advantage because of Risa's arrogance. I guess it works out to our favor. Issei, now firmly in battle mode, found the advantages he could use in this field. Rias-sama's base is in the Occult Research Club room in the old school building, while Riser-sama's is in the Student Council room in the new school building. If the pawns are to promote, then please go to the opposing side's location. We first have to deal with the pawns first, or it'll really be trouble if they all promote to queens, Issei agreed. To siege a castle, take away all fortifications, supplies and, in this case, their reinforcements, especially ones as dangerous as a queen, never mind 8. He had a solution for that. But you? I have a way to deal with them. What is it? Rias was intrigued. Well, it's simple, really. That was the start of the raiding game. Gue Academy was built different than most Japanese schools. The main building was made with a unique design with large glass windows and Greek-style pillars at the entrance. The old school building was built in a similar way, except for the lack of pillars at the entrance. The gymnasium in the middle was a huge creation as expected of a building designed for housing the whole population of students for events of the school. The boundaries of the school itself were surrounded by a veritable forest, overgrown trees filling it with only a few cobbled pathways leading from one place to another. In the branches of one of those trees, a few 100 feet away from the old school building, crouched Issei. He was waiting for the pawns that he expected would be approaching from here. His reasoning behind it was the fact that Riser's peerage didn't know the field as much as Rias did, so he guessed that they would rather go in the most straightforward path available rather than move through the forest, where it was much easier to disable them with traps. Of course, that alone didn't really guarantee the fact that they would use the path given rather than actually go through the forest, and was based on a lot of assumptions. The same knew for a fact that most people like Riser, arrogant and condescending, would give them lots of opportunities to fight back simply to break those hope into pieces. That was confirmed when they were transported to a field like this, an exact replica of their home ground, showing that Riser really did go on that kind of philosophy. One in which he completely and utterly crushed everyone who stood against him. But even then, it was a tense minute, one which was only broken by the clap-clap of shoes against the pavement. Issei looked down and saw 3 of Riser's pawns slowly walking on the road towards the school building, oblivious to his presence. Issei couldn't help but smile. That makes things easier. Once the 3 were directly below him, he jumped off the tree soundlessly, quietly landing in the middle of the 3's formation. The shock of a single person, even if that one did take up 8 pawn pieces, was so great that they were momentarily struck speechless. One of them, the pawn who was dressed in a fetishistic dancer attire, was the first to react, a casting circle forming on her hand. She barely managed to launch it before Issei ducked underneath her arm, twisting around to her back, striking at the nape of her neck with a lightning-quick chop. She dropped to the ground bonelessly. The other 2, these ones dressed like maids, did not take that lying down so easily. With twin enraged cries, the two of the charge did Issei, who simply sidestepped them, bringing the one closest to him to the ground. With an easy gesture he knocked her out, enraging the remaining one even further. "I'll kill you." With a very unoriginal war cry, she made a magical circle in front of her, large enough to cover her frame. A torrent of flame rushed at Issei, who calmly met the attack dead on. The flames, which would have incinerated a normal human or even a devil, simply froze. Once the tips of the fire reached Issei, he simply reached out and applied his own skills to take over, turning flames into frost. He made the ice shatter and was greeted with the sight of the stunned girl, eyes wide and jaws gaping at him. But the simple move, the last of the three, was taken out of the fight. The voice of the announcer sounded through the arena. Riser saw Miss 3 pawns retire. Issei frowned, staring thoughtfully at the ground where only moments ago, 3 of his opponents were standing, trying to take him out of the game. In truth, he could have knocked out the 3 of them the moment he dropped down on them. The only reason that he abstained to do so was so he could see just what the pawns of Riser could do. He wasn't impressed. That was far, far too easy. Still, it meant that at least 3 members of Riser's peerage were out for the duration of the game. Boom! Riser saw Miss 2 pawns, 1 knight and 1 rook retires. The flash of lightning and the booming sound of thunder, along with that announcement, broke through Issei's thoughts. He looked up and saw a fading magical circle and smoking ruins of what was no doubt the gymnasium. At least that was what was planned. To take out the middle ground in their fight, thereby making traveling between the two sides without being caught a more difficult feat to accomplish. Boom! Once again, the sound of an explosion thundered through the battlefield, and Issei made up his mind. Destination set in mind, he charged not towards the gym but to the school grounds closer to the heart of the main school building, the base of Riser Phoenix. Dibba ducked under the blow aimed to cleave off his head, pushing off the ground to gain some distance, and time to be able to think. The assault against the gym went without a hitch, Kaneko and him being able to beat down 2 pawns, a knight and a rook. At first, Kiba was concerned about his junior, worried that she wouldn't be able to take on 3 opponents at once. Then he saw the golden light that covered her, and within minutes was able to incapacitate all 3 of them down before Kiba had even finished off his opponent, Sarah, she called herself. Kiba could only shake his head slowly, amazed at the progress that the rook was able to improve. The 2 of them walked away from the gym, greatly confusing the 4 inside the building. That was until lightning struck down from the heavens to hit the gym, and the peerage members inside of it. Kibo and Kaneko, still coming down from the high of battle, became complacent in their progress and paid for it. Kibo himself barely managed to get out of the bomb radius with the speed granted to him by the night piece inside of him. Kaneko, Oroken caught off guard and out of her Taki form, wasn't so lucky and ended up with a set of nasty wounds. They were preparing to fight the Yubelina, the Queen of Riser, when Aikino showed up. The 2 of them began their combat mid-flight, the air being filled with the sparks of their signature magic. Dibba and Kaneko took that chance to get closer to Riser's base. And here he was now crossing blades with Karlum and the other knight of the Phoenix. Dibba watched his opponent, wary eyes taking in her form, observing every movement she made. Smack! The sound of Kaneko getting hit by one of her 3 opponents made Kiba grit his teeth, wanting to take care of whoever it was that hurt his junior. When he made an unconscious move to go to her side, the knight blocked his path, locking blades with him, smirking all the while. The 2 of them rushed towards each other, Kiba wielding his long sword and Karloman, her Zweihander. Between rapid exchanges the knight piece gave them, Kiba saw from out of the corner of his eye that Kaneko was now able to fight back, Taki once again covering her body. "You're pretty good, Knight of Gremory." The voice of his opponent along with the sword aimed at his neck that Kiba barely blocked reminded him that distractions could end him any moment. "Thank you, Knight of Phoenix. As much as I enjoy this duel, do you think that you could move? I have to help someone in need." Parliament smiled at him, pushing away from his blade, landing a distance away from him. "No, I don't think I want." "Good try, though." With that, she once again met Kiba's blade in a clash of steel that sent sparks flying through the air. Riser-sama's rook retires. Rya-sama's rook retires. Diba's eyes widened in surprise, head snapping over to the Kaneko's direction, where he saw that her body was slowly fading into light. Beside her, the two pawns had their hands outstretched, panting from exhaustion, but grinning in victory. "Moo, Carlo man, finish your opponent already. Naya and Lee already defeated theirs." The high-class voice came from the only one in their group that didn't fight. She looked like a young girl with long blonde hair tied in twin ponytails with large drill-like curls tied up with red ribbons and dark blue eyes. She was wearing a light purple dress with dark purple accents and a blue bow at the front. At the back, 3 feather-like extensions mimicking a bird's tail protrude from the dress, which, when combined with her wings of fire, give her a bird-like appearance, which was rather apt given just what she really was, Revel Phoenix, though Kiba didn't really know that. Someone that was wearing a kimono was also sitting right beside her, never once leaving her side during the whole battle. Honestly, Unite types are so troublesome, with your honor and all. Parliament sighed before resolutely facing Kiba, her 2 allied pawns encircling Ria's only knight. With a deft gesture, all 3 of them were suddenly engulfed in flames. "This has been a good fight, but I'm afraid I must finish this quickly." "Don't worry, I'll make sure that we get a real duel once we win this match." Kiba slowly backed away, unwilling to get himself surrounded, created another blade, the Flame Delete. He raised it to mitigate the damage when Riser-sama's queen retires. Everyone in the vicinity made an indication of surprise, staring at where the voice of the announcer originated. Kiba then grew an ecstatic grin on his face while all the members of Riser's peerage was still wide-eyed with shock, all of them temporarily losing control of their powers. Revel, the first to get over her surprise, snapped, "Hey everyone, take down that knight now. I want this match to end. I'm gonna ask you Balloon a lot of questions later on." The 2 pawns and the knight followed her orders, once again covered by fire. He raised his newly created sword, and instantly, the flames covering them were immediately sucked into it. "What the hell? What did you do?" It seems that Riser's peerage was encountering a lot of surprises in this particular game. Daiba, seeing a chance to buy himself time to get out of the mess he was in and for his allies to arrive, explained, "This sort of mind is something which devours any and all flames. You people really are unlucky to be fighting against someone like me." Okay, he was pulling those words out of his ass and he knew it, but he hoped that they didn't. The sword he held certainly could absorb flames, but ones that were really powerful, like those of a phoenix, he had no chance of defending against. Still, his bravado seemed to make them carefully evaluate him. That was until Revel spoke up. "Fight. Honestly, being cautious just because of something like that, you should be ashamed of yourselves. It's obvious that he's just bluffing." The 2 pawns, emboldened by her words, began to stalk towards Kiba while the knight sat back patiently. Kiba prepared for the fight, determined to bring as many of them down as he could before Riser-sama's knight retires. The voice of Graphia announced the apparent defeat of Carloman. "You!" Revel announced, voice holding an accusatory tone in it, pointing towards the one responsible for the sudden attack. Standing there, the unconscious body of the knight at his feet, was Issei. "Okay, 2 bishops, 2 pawns and a knight." He glanced at the body fading into light underneath him. "Okay. Cross out the knight," he amended. "You!" Issei looked up straight into the eyes of the other bishop in the field, staring straight into him with a curious kind of intensity. Issei, rather rudely, ignored her in favor of turning to Kiba, his eyes falling to his body. "What happened to you? You're bleeding." Kiba looked surprised before turning his gaze to where Issei's was. "To be honest, I didn't even notice it." He gingerly touched his side where a gash nearly a foot long was bleeding out, staining his clothes with the crimson liquid. Issei nodded sagely. The high of battle combined with the adrenaline does do that sometimes. Makes you forget wins to be able to fight. Fascinating, isn't it? Issei-kun, it's not that I don't appreciate your lesson, but do you really think this is the time and place for it? Kiba asked. Oh, right. Issei turned to the 4 opponents on the opposite side of the battlefield, gathering chakra once again and feeling the familiar warmth of the flames inside of him. Hey Kiba, do you mind me butting in your fight? I want to take revenge on the ones who took out Kaneko-chan. Then not at all. Those pawns were the ones who did it along with the rook, though Kaneko-chan took her out by herself. It's amazing really how much she improved in a week. Kiba said, awe in his voice. Yes, she really did, didn't she? Issei responded, unable to keep the pride out of his voice. What did you do anyway? It's like, stop ignoring me. Whatever Kiba was going to say was lost as Ravel seemed to finally lose her patience and resorted to anger, judging by her tone of voice, along with the waves and waves of fire and the powerful gusts of wind whirling around her. Yeah, Issei was pretty sure that she was pissed. Hi. Issei said that in hope that it will calm her down. Then again, since when did his plans ever work out in his favor? Hi. I haven't seen you in 2 years, and the only thing you say is hi. Her voice took on a higher note. Fib, wanting answers, decided to just ask Issei. What is she talking about? Issei whispered. It's complicated. Speaking up, he said. What are you talking about? Judging from the violent twitch in her eye, that was the wrong thing to say. Did you already forget me? Even after all you did? The words, in contrast to her appearance, were said in a soft voice. Then her voice suddenly gained strength, straightening up. Then I'll remind you of who I am. I am Ravel of the Phoenix clan, daughter of fire and wind. You better remember who I am, or I'll force you to do so. Ravel pointed toward him, and the fire suddenly roared, charging toward him, determined to burn to say, okay, she was really pissed off. The things he put up for anonymity. There. He raised his arms, hands open, directed at the oncoming wave. Before the astonished eyes of everyone there, the flames didn't even touch him, instead absorbed by his say, seemingly disappearing into thin air. Once the fire cleared, it showed the wide-eyed look that Ravel had on her face. Boy Kiba, can I ask you to hold on for a few minutes? I need to take care of this quickly. Sure, but may I ask where Akino-senpai is? She's with Butchie in Asia, helping them against Riser. He turned towards the still stunned Phoenix in front of him, who was now a lot less confident, and slowly walked towards her before breaking into a run. Ojo-sama, get behind me. The woman beside Ravel, a fellow bishop with black hair and wearing a purple kimono, pushed the flame princess behind her, shielding Ravel from the charging pawn. It was as effective as blocking an arrow with paper. Issei crossed the distance between them in seconds, dodging under the magic circle from the bishop's magic as he did so. When she tried to defend herself, Issei jabbed at her throat, then at her temple. The still unnamed girl collapsed, instantly fainting at the 2 strikes. Issei privately thought that Ravel's face, seeing her brother's bishop so easily beaten, was priceless. Too late, she brought her hand up to attack Issei, but he just grabbed her by the arm, stopping her cold. I'll explain everything later, little bird. With a small smile and a quick deft movement, the wide-eyed Phoenix in front of him was, like the others, knocked out. Riser saw Miss 2 Bishops retires. Well, that was anticlimactic, Issei said as the body and his arms faded away into white light being sent to the medical ward in the underworld. Issei saw that Kiba was also finishing up with his own opponents. With the final strike of his flame delete, Kiba spilt the blood of the blue-haired catgirl. Riser saw Miss 2 Pawns retires. Kiba gave Issei a measuring glance. So, Issei-kun, would you mind explaining just how you seem to know that girl? Issei rubbed the back of his neck, the awkward movement contrasting with his glowing orange eyes and the flame in his hands. It's a long story, actually. Biba rose an eyebrow at that, before bemusedly shaking his head. You really are an interesting person, Issei-kan. I'm really lucky to meet someone like you. You are aware that I'm attracted to girls, right? That actually caught Kiba off guard, but he immediately returned the favor. Don't worry, if I like someone, then it doesn't matter if they're a boy or a girl, I love them all the same. That was said in a matter-of-fact tone of voice that Issei was a little nervous about his friend. Unfortunately, the PLAYFUL banter was interrupted by the announcement. Ria-sama's queen retires. The two of them instantly snapped to attention, gazes locking onto the top of the main school building where pillars of fire and blasts of dark energy were flying around. With a glance at each other, they sprinted off to its direction at the fastest speed they could, determined to help their president. Rias panted, glaring angrily at Riser Phoenix. They'd been at it for half an hour on the rooftop, and when Aquino had come to back her up 15 minutes ago and his queen, the one he called Jubilina, had arrived the same time, They had been throwing magic to each other, slinging flames, lightning, explosives, and even spheres of pure destruction. Ironically enough, Riser has lost his queen when she reached for her bottle of phoenix tears, leaving her open long enough for Rias to be able to create a magical circle underneath her, blasting her off and putting her out of commission. The two of them, Rias and Aquino, had done their best, putting their all into it, getting creative in their use of magic, but Riser proved that the phoenix really earned their namesake and showed them his immortality. Aquino had lost when, in a fit of rage because of a fireball nearly hitting Asia, she had gotten a little too enthusiastic and charged at Riser. The phoenix had dodged her and used his wings of flames to encase her in a qualifier. Now here she was, tired from her efforts, but not without bearing fruits of her own. Riser looked ragged, his breathing a bit harsh, hair a little unkempt, and his face covered in sweat. He also looked pissed. Rias, this is madness. Both you and I know that your efforts are pointless. Everyone has already foreseen the outcome, so why not just give up and marry me? I promise, I'll make you feel things you've never felt before. The last part was said in a lecherous grin, no doubt implying things that involve beds, lack of clothes, and penises inside vaginas. Specifically hers. And the female members of her peerage, and her mother if Riser had any say in it. Still, inside Riser's mind, he was starting to doubt himself, even if just a little. He had thought that this would end with him winning easily, giving them the chance to defeat his own peerage and then beating them all handily. After that, he would marry Rias, be able to play with her own peerage in addition to his own, and gain the respect of the devil community. What he didn't expect was for his opponent to overcome nearly everything he sent at her, barely losing any of her own members until well into the game. And she was actually more skilled than he thought, beating him and his queen with help from hers and even be able to give him a run for his money. Him, an experienced fighter, a veteran of multiple rating games, being fought to a standstill by an immature devil, one who wasn't even allowed to join official matches. His words seemed to make Rias angrier, baring her teeth at him. Beside her, Asia was shaking terribly, scared of the phoenix in front of her. Shut your mouth, Razor, I won't give up. Knew the outcome. No more choices. I'm still in the game, you know. You barely have any pieces left, and I can see that you're getting tired. This game isn't over yet. Greaser, nerves beginning to fray, didn't want to keep this up and simply created a huge fireball above his head, the heat of it reaching Rias, who was a dozen feet away. Then I land it right now and make you my woman. With that declaration, he threw the now gigantic ball at her, the tiles of the rooftop beginning to melt as the ball of heat passed by. Rias cursed. The size of it ensured that she couldn't just dodge it as Asia, who was right behind her, would be too slow to do so. She was also too slow to go to Asia, pick her up, and outrun the fireball while carrying another person. And if she countered the fireball with her own powers, she may run out of energy to do anything else after that. Gritting her teeth, she ran towards her only bishop in the game and hoped for the best. Her hope was answered when she suddenly felt warm arms encircle her, tucking her into its chest, carrying her away from the destruction of the fireball. When she looked up, she saw bright orange eyes gazing down at her, smiling playfully. Hey, but you, I hope I'm not interrupting something. Yash? Yash set Rias down after making sure that she was all right. He turned to Kiba where he saw that the night was setting down. Asia. Hey, but you, hope I'm not interrupting something, he said with a smile, eyes twinkling in amusement. Nodding, he turned towards the phoenix. With one glance, he saw that he was angry, the winds picking up around them and his wings of fire dancing erratically. He was a lot less pompous than he was at the clubroom, with his rumpled clothes, ragged hair, and his overall shabby demeanor. That, coupled with his slightly heavy breathing and wild eyes, showed that the others really did a number on him. Without fanfare, the phoenix rudely interrupted the moment, storming towards the group in a tornado of fire and wind. Bria's made to move against Riser, but his sage gently pushed her back. Don't worry, but you've done more than enough. Let your pawn take care of things. He turned to the rapidly approaching storm in front of him and said, unburnt, unbent, unbroken. Fire erupted from his gauntlets, matching Riser's own flames, meeting in a pillar that reached for the heavens. Riser jumped through it, the fires right behind him as they followed his will. Issei raised his hand, catching Riser's fist before throwing him back to his original position. Issei, taking the slight opening, didn't make him take a breather and pushed his advantage, launching himself at Riser. Not expecting it, Riser was met with a barrage of strikes that he barely even saw, much less block. Desperate to gain some ground, he commanded his wings to strike at Issei, who instinctively pulled back. Riser, taking the chance, flew up into the air, gaining some much-needed downtime. Issei narrowed his eyes at the flying figure, who seemed to grow some balls at Issei's lack of follow-up. Not so confident now, are you pawn? I am a phoenix here in the air, we are the hunters. He spread his arms in a cocky gesture, smirking at him through his shortening breath. In response, Issei simply aimed both of his palms at the ground. His hands were glowing with power, and then boom! The stream of fire propelled Issei through the air, now facing the wide-eyed phoenix. His opponent, too surprised by the unexpected development, only had enough time to duck under the kick aimed for his throat. Issei smirked and stepped on the phoenix's back. He grabbed onto his wings, unmindful of the slight burns and the heat from it, and simply turned it into ice, freezing the base of the fiery appendage. Satisfied, he raised his right foot and brought it down forcefully on the top of Riser's head. His wings were ripped straight out of his back, sending him down to earth, his impact making a crater in the ground. The fire in Issei's hands burned out, and he slowly glided onto the ground, watching Riser intently. He picked himself at the crater, visibly struggling to stand up. Why? The honest curiosity in his voice was enough to make Issei stop his walk towards Riser. What? Why would you fight for Rias? I looked into you. You haven't even met her before a few weeks ago. You were nothing more than a normal human with a normal life. You don't even know her all that well. You have no obligations to honor, no debts to pay, nothing. Why would you willingly become someone else's pawn to fight an immortal phoenix for someone like that? Issei stared down at him. Because I want to help her. I want her to be given the freedom she deserves. I want her to be able to do what she wants, say what's on her mind, and love who she loves. She's a good person, that much I know, and she's my master now. He gave a helpless shrug, smiling awkwardly. If she orders, I obey. In God, that sound cheesy. Unknown to say, Rias was at the grounds the moment Riser crashed down and was currently listening in to their conversation. Because I want to help her. I want her to be given the freedom she deserves. I want her to be able to do what she wants, say what's on her mind, and love who she loves. She's a good person, that much I know, and she's my master now. He gave a helpless shrug, smiling awkwardly. If she orders, I obey. In God. That sound cheesy. Rias put her hands on her chest. Am I to say, are you trying to make me fall for you? She said softly, her cheeks a vivid red. Rias Samus Knight and Bishop retires. What? Rias snapped her head to the rooftop where she left the two members of her peerage. Instead of the two blondes, she saw a young girl with blue hair tied up into 4 ponytails, wearing a white haori, a red obi, and a red coat over that. In her hand, she held a wooden staff which was currently pointing at Rias, quickly approaching her. Rias saw him as Knight and Bishop retires. Issei instantly went on alert, cursing himself for his moment of carelessness. He should have known better, damn it. He was a warrior, not a novice that doesn't know the first thing about battle. Never take off your guard in a battlefield where anything and everything can change in the blink of an eye or a single act. He immediately looked for his king, the most important piece in a raiding game. He saw the blue-haired girl in the air who was rushing towards Rias. He cursed and ran towards her, putting on every bit of speed he had into it. He saw Rias raise her arms, her signature black and crimson magic appearing in it. He saw it rush towards the pawn. And he saw the pawn smoothly ducking under it with speed and grace that didn't belong to one. Still, it bought him enough time to get to Ria's side. But are you okay? He said, eyes darting between the last two opponents. Well done, Mara. I'll be sure to reward you later on for this act of yours. You even managed to promote into a queen when no one was looking. Truly marvelous. The newly named Mira preened under Riser's praise, blushing like a love-struck schoolgirl. Thank you, Riser-sama. I do my best to make you happy. Issei tensed, backing away to form a triangle with the two of them, keeping Riaz behind his back as he did so. Well, Riaz, it's been nice, but I think it's high time to end this, don't you think? Brazier gestured at me, and simultaneously, they each formed a magical circle in front of them, and Issei sensed that the amount of magic inside of them was ridiculous, far more than he could safely absorb into his limited pool of energy. If he attempted to turn it into ice, well, the amount of fire that would no doubt be released could overpower even that, and there's no way in hell that he would risk Ria's future on something like that. So he made the choice, one that all but ensured they would win this game. The two phoenixes released their magic, and two 20-foot waves of fire were now burning their way towards Issei and his king. He only had one response for that. Greg, unseal. Seal 1, release. Boost. Explosion. He held out his two palms in front of him and met the attack head on. The two flames clashed in a torrent of fire, meeting up in a pillar of fire, a funeral pyre for the fallen pawn, and the bone fire for Riser and Ria's wedding. At least that's what Riser intended. What actually happened was a collision of flames, and unexpectedly, smoke began to form. Once the smokescreen faded, the sight behind them was revealed to the world. It was a field of ice, everything around them in a 20-foot radius covered in frost. The very atmosphere itself was frozen, Riser and Mira feeling the cold, harsh bite of the air blowing around them. And standing in the middle of it all, arms still outstretched, was Issei. But the clearer view of it, they saw that the jewels set on the back of his gloves, instead of the 3 which Riser managed to see during their fight, lost a numeral and was now a 2. His forehead and hands was burning with a flame that wasn't a flame. It was acting like fire should, yet Riser inexplicably knew that it wouldn't burn anything its master didn't command it to. Riser didn't know why, but he felt chills run down his back at the sight. Opposite of him, he saw his pawns sharing the sentiment, warily observing the boy in front of them. If he wasn't staring so attentively at Issei, Riser was sure that he would have missed it. A short motion of the legs, a small twitch of the arms, Riser saw his pawn retires. It was all over. Whatever it was that boy did, it was pretty damn effective. Riser thought rather sardonically. Riser Phoenix, anything to say? Issei's gaze was now aimed at him and Riser felt a hitch in his throat. Those eyes, glowing with power, were directed at him and Riser suddenly felt very insignificant as he struggled not to squirm. Yes. A raised eyebrow answered his questions. Those flames, they're beautiful. Now he knew why. His fire was one of the purest he had ever seen. He was awed at the sight. To think there was a fire out there that could challenge the phoenixes. Undeterred, Riser summoned his own wings of fire reaching the sky. With a small, almost imperceptible smile, he ran towards Issei, happy even though he knew the only possible outcome of this clash. Ignis Draconi. 1. Riser-sama's king retires. Rias Gremory-sama is the winner. Thanks for listening to my video. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe and comment below your favorite part. Sayonara, see you in the next video.